I will teach you how to think correctly, not as the world thinks, not as fear thinks, not as reason alone thinks, but as imagination thinks. Pure, undiluted imagination. For thinking correctly is not about reasoning better, but imagining rightly. Man's thoughts, left to drift like leaves in the wind, will lead him down paths of mediocrity, suffering, confusion, but let man assume the power to direct thought consciously, intentionally, and he becomes the master of his fate, the author of his world. We are told in Scripture, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." But this heart is not your flesh, it is your imagination, your subconscious conviction, the secret chamber where thoughts are clothed in feeling and projected into form. You think you are thinking when you worry, when you repeat the facts, when you argue for your limitations. But that is not correct thinking. Correct thinking is disciplined imagination, guided by the assumption of already being that which you desire to be. Let me be perfectly clear. Your outer world is not happening to you. It is happening through you and because of you. The world is your mirror, always reflecting the quality of your thoughts. When you change the content and character of your thoughts, the reflection must change. But if you continue to observe the same outer conditions and think in reaction to them, you only perpetuate their reality. Correct thinking begins when you cease reacting and begin imagining. When you interrupt the cycle of cause and effect and enter the realm of creation. I tell you, the only thing you ever need to change is your concept of self. Not the people around you, not the economy, not the conditions, but yourself. For the world follows you. You are not the product of your circumstances. Your circumstances are the product of your habitual assumptions. The way you think of yourself, the way you feel yourself to be, that is the secret cause, that is the root, and from that root, every branch of experience grows. When I say I will teach you how to think correctly, I mean I will teach you how to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is the only correct thought. For every other thought is a lie. You were not born to suffer. You were not meant to chase after crumbs. You are not here to beg. You are the operant power. You are the one who imagines, and therefore the one who creates. But until you become conscious of what you are imagining, until you take hold of the reins of thought, you will continue to live by default, ruled by appearances and tormented by doubt. Thinking correctly is not complicated. It is not a technique you must memorize. It is the natural act of imagining what you desire and assuming its reality. Assume it in the silence of your own soul. Feel its truth as you fall asleep. Carry its mood through your day. Ignore the evidence that contradicts it. That is correct thinking. It is not about the number of affirmations you chant, but about the feeling you cultivate within. If you say, "I am rich," but feel poor, you are thinking incorrectly. But if you say nothing and feel abundance, you are thinking correctly. Let us be done with shallow affirmations and empty words. Words alone do nothing. It is the feeling behind the words that makes them alive. What do you believe when no one is watching? What do you assume in the privacy of your inner conversations? That is your real prayer, your real thought, your real act of creation. I ask you, what are you thinking right now? Is it in harmony with your desire or in contradiction? Is it shaped by faith or by fear? Man becomes what he thinks about all day long, but not merely the surface thoughts. No, it is the emotionalized thoughts, the felt thoughts, the ones repeated and believed, that shape his reality. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are conscious of being. Wanting something is not enough. Longing for change is not enough. You must feel it as done. That is correct thinking. To see the invisible and walk in it. To assume the state of the desired and abide in it. I once knew a man who struggled for years with lack. He worked hard. He tried every method. But nothing changed. Until one day he stopped striving and simply imagined himself wealthy. He saw himself signing large checks, walking into elegant rooms, feeling the confidence of a man with more than enough. He did not argue with reality. He did not wait for permission. He simply assumed, and from that day his world changed. Not because of effort, but because of assumption. You must understand this truth. Imagining creates reality. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but always. There is no exception. What you imagine with feeling is projected outward into form. The delay you perceive is not evidence of failure, but of gestation. Do not uproot the seed because you have not yet seen the fruit. Water it with feeling, feed it with repetition, rest in the assumption. That is the secret of correct thought. Every man lives in a state. That state determines the thoughts he thinks, the feelings he feels, the actions he takes. You cannot think correctly while dwelling in a state of fear or lack. You must move to a new state of consciousness. Enter the state of the fulfilled desire. Assume its perspective, speak from its voice, think from its certainty. This is not pretending, it is creation. Pretending is saying one thing and feeling another. Creation is feeling the truth so deeply that it hardens into fact. What is your desire? Wealth, love, health? It does not matter. All things are possible to him who believes, but belief is not intellectual agreement. Belief is feeling. Belief is the acceptance of the truth of your desire without needing evidence. Belief is living in the end. When you think correctly, you do not ask, how will it happen? You say, it is done. You no longer struggle with doubt because you know the law. You know that the unseen is more real than the seen, for the seen is born of the unseen. Your thoughts are seeds. Each one contains within it the pattern of the harvest. Think correctly and your life becomes a garden of delights. Think incorrectly and it becomes a field of weeds. But you are the gardener. You may pluck out the weeds, you may sow new seeds, and you do so by assumption, by imagination, by disciplined, intentional thought. When I say disciplined, I do not mean rigid or strained, I mean persistent, quiet, steady. You must persist in the assumption, even when the senses deny it, especially when they deny it. That is the test. Will you remain loyal to the unseen? Will you walk by faith, not by sight? Will you think from the end, not toward it? That is what separates the master from the novice. The master knows that the world cannot help but conform to his assumption. You are not a passive observer in life, you are a creator. And the substance of your creation is thought, felt with conviction, repeated with faith, embodied with joy. You need no permission, no approval, no circumstances. All you need is the willingness to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is the key. That is the secret. That is correct thinking. You may look at your life now and see lack, delay, failure, but do not judge by appearances. Do not accept what is as the final word. The only truth is the one you accept inwardly. If you can imagine something greater and persist in that imagination, the world will yield to it. You do not fight the old, no, you simply imagine the new. You ignore the noise of doubt and trust the silence of your own inner vision. For God speaks in imagination, and your imagination is God in action. Every time you dwell in the end, you shift your state. Every time you feel the wish fulfilled, you rewrite your destiny. You are not bound by past thoughts. You are free now in this moment to think correctly, to choose the highest assumption, to say, I am what I desire to be. And if you will say it with feeling, believe it with childlike wonder, and rest in it with peace, your world will change. It must. You were never meant to struggle with thought. You were meant to direct it. You were never meant to be at the mercy of conditions. You were meant to create them. And you create by imagining, not by wishing, not by pleading, but by assuming. The assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That is the law. That is correct thinking. Let the world call it delusion. Let them scoff and doubt. Let them cling to logic and probability. You do not need their agreement. You need only your own conviction. For you are the operant power. You are the one who imagines. And therefore you are the one who manifests. So I tell you now, begin this moment to think correctly. Refuse to dwell in what is. Choose instead to dwell in what can be. Know in what already is. Within. Feel it real. Hear it true. Walk as if it were so, and the world will rearrange itself around your conviction. You were told, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That is not a metaphor. It is a law. Renew your mind by assuming the new man, the new state, the fulfilled version of yourself. Think only from that place. Let every thought reflect the end you have accepted. Let every feeling affirm your new reality. And if you should waver, return to the vision. Return to the end. Return to the truth that your assumption is already fact. I will teach you how to think correctly. And thinking correctly is nothing more than imagining lovingly, feeling deeply, assuming boldly. It is choosing to live in the end, to act from the answer, to speak from the fulfilled desire. Do this and your life will be transformed. Not by force, not by effort, but by law. You are not a beggar. You are not a victim. You are not a servant to fate. You are imagination itself. You are the dreamer in the act of dreaming. Dream wisely. Dream boldly. Dream as one who knows the dream is real. Think as one who knows he creates. Feel as one who knows he already is. And then watch as the world bows to your vision. Watch as the invisible becomes visible. Watch as your assumption becomes your life. For that is the promise. That is the truth. And that is the power of correct thinking. There is no end to what you can do when you begin to think from the right premise. The premise must always be, it is already done. From this one root, all things grow rightly. But when you think from the premise of lack, of waiting, of hoping, you are thinking from the wrong direction and planting seeds that cannot bear the fruit you desire. The law does not respond to need, it responds to assumption. It is not pity that moves creation, but certainty. You must become so inwardly convinced of your desire's reality that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. Feelings are the secret, and they are shaped entirely by your thoughts. When you imagine correctly, you feel differently. You speak differently. You walk differently. Not because the world has changed, but because your inner state has changed. It is that inner shift, that unseen rearrangement, that precedes all visible change. Most wait for something external to give them permission to feel fulfilled. But when you think correctly, you give yourself that permission now. You bypass the need for evidence. You live in the unseen, confident that it will be seen. No effort, no striving, no manipulation is required. Only faith, only feeling, only persistence. For correct thinking is not a single act, it is a state of being. And states are not changed by wishing, they are changed by assuming, by living from a new attitude, not merely thinking of it. You cannot merely say, I want to be free. You must think from freedom. You must feel what it is like to have already been freed. That subtle shift in feeling is everything. It is the line that divides the old man from the new. You will know you are thinking correctly when you no longer seek confirmation. When the desire to prove fades and the knowing becomes natural. You will walk in a world that has yet to catch up to your vision. And you will not be disturbed, for you know what is coming. It is like a pregnant woman who does not doubt the child simply because she cannot yet see it. She knows. She prepares. She smiles. So too must you prepare for the life you have conceived in imagination. That is correct thinking. To think correctly is to love your vision so deeply that you protect it from every contrary thought, every fearful whisper, every lingering doubt. You will learn to turn inward the moment resistance arises. You will learn to revise the moment something contradicts your assumption. Revision is one of the highest forms of correct thought. It is not about erasing the past, but about transforming your response to it. You imagine it differently, and in doing so, you change its influence over your present. There is nothing fixed unless you declare it so. You are always free to think again, to assume again, to believe anew. Correct thinking makes you immune to the tyranny of time. You no longer count days. You no longer calculate how long. That question dissolves. For when you feel it real now, time has already served its purpose. You have entered eternity in that moment of assumption. The senses may report otherwise, but you no longer consult them. They are no longer your master, but your servant. You have placed imagination at the center of your being, and it will not betray you. You may find others unable to follow you here. That is fine. This is not the path of the masses. It is the narrow way, the invisible ladder that only you can climb. Those around you may ask, where is it? Where is your success? But you will smile. For you will know it is already within you, already moving toward manifestation, already set in motion by your thought, and you need not convince anyone. For the truth requires no defense. It only requires persistence. Every moment is a chance to begin again. Every breath is an invitation to think correctly. You are not bound by yesterday's mistakes. You are not doomed by a single thought. Even now, you may choose to assume a higher state. Even now, you may inhabit the mind of your ideal self. What would you think if you were already there? How would you speak? How would you carry yourself? Begin there. Begin with the end in mind and live from it. That is not fantasy. That is creation. When you close your eyes and imagine a scene that implies your wish fulfilled, and you feel it real, you are building the structure of your future. You may not see the full outline yet, but every repetition strengthens it. Every feeling nourishes it. Soon, it becomes so vivid, so alive, that the outer world bends to accommodate it. The phone rings, the letter arrives, the door opens, and you will know that nothing happened by chance. It was your thought, faithfully felt, that brought it to pass. Do not wait for better conditions. They will never come while you wait. You must make the decision now to think correctly, regardless of appearances. To see the invisible despite the visible, that is faith. That is power. That is freedom. The man who thinks correctly no longer fears the world. He no longer worships logic. He no longer asks permission. He moves with quiet confidence, knowing that all things are subject to his inner world. Do not underestimate the power of a single thought persisted in. A single assumption held faithfully can overturn years of struggle. The moment you claim, "I am now what I desire to be," and truly feel it, you set in motion a chain of events that cannot be stopped. Do not look for proof. Do not seek signs. The change has already occurred in the unseen. Your only task now is to remain faithful to that inner vision. Think from it, speak from it, and above all, feel it. There will be temptations. Temptations to look around and say, "Nothing's changing." But that is the old mind speaking. That is incorrect thinking. The correct thought says, "It is done. It is unfolding. It is mine." You will be tempted to adjust your desires to match your current conditions. Resist this. Do not lower your vision to fit the facts. Raise the facts to fit your vision. This is the sacred responsibility of one who knows the law. If ever you feel lost, return to stillness. Return to the silence within. In that silence, imagine again, feel again, choose again. There is no failure unless you stop imagining. There is no defeat unless you abandon the end. As long as you hold the vision, the law must fulfill it. You are not here to predict the path, only to persist in the feeling. The how is not your concern. The end is yours to assume. Leave the means to the law, which knows exactly what is necessary. You are not here to force the outer world, but to impress the inner world. When the inner impression is complete, the outer expression must match it. It is law. Immutable, impersonal, perfect. Your job is not to struggle, but to surrender. To surrender to the assumption that what you desire is already so. And when you surrender in this way, you find that life becomes effortless. People come, opportunities arise, doors open, and you are carried along, not by effort, but by grace. Your thinking creates your world, not your hard work, not your worry, not your logic. Only your thoughts, saturated with feeling and sustained with faith, create the life you experience. If you desire to see something new, you must think something new. You must feel something new. You must imagine more beautifully, more boldly, more freely. The only limitations are those you accept. Correct thinking is freedom. It is the end of striving. It is the end of waiting. It is the end of hoping. It is the beginning of knowing. The beginning of living from the inside out. You no longer ask if it will happen. You no longer ask when. You know it already is. And you feel it so deeply that the outer world cannot help but reflect it. You are the author of your reality, writing with the pen of imagination. Each scene you dwell upon, each feeling you entertain, is another line written in the story of your life. Write with care, write with joy, write with purpose. And if ever the scene displeases you, do not despair. Simply write again, imagine again, choose again. For you are never trapped. You are never stuck. You are never a victim, unless you imagine yourself to be. You cannot think wrongly and live rightly, nor can you think rightly and live wrongly. Your thoughts are the mold, and life is the clay. What shape shall you give it? That is your power. That is your privilege. That is your divine inheritance. Begin now. Begin with one idea, one thought so pure, so certain, so saturated with belief, that it becomes the foundation of your entire being. Let it be something beautiful. Let it be something bold. Let it challenge every doubt you've ever known. And do not let it go. Nurture it in silence. Carry it with you through the noise. Let it guide your words, your actions, your reactions. Think it again and again. Not as a mantra but as a living truth. Let it grow until it is the only truth you know. You will be tested. Yes, life will bring before you every reason to revert, every excuse to surrender the vision. But correct thinking holds firm. It does not fight back. It simply continues to assume the wish fulfilled. It remains loyal to the unseen over the seen. And by its calm, consistent faith, it reshapes what is visible. It remakes your world in its own image. You become, in truth, the Word made flesh. Think of any great change in your life. Did it not begin with a thought, a decision, a moment where you said, "Enough. This is who I am now"? That was correct thinking at work. Perhaps you did not know it then. Perhaps you stumbled into it. But it worked all the same. The law is no respecter of persons. It simply follows assumption. What you assume yourself to be, that you become, not eventually, but now. And the now you accept becomes the world you encounter. You do not need anyone's permission to begin. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need to be healed, or qualified, or ready. All you need is a new thought, deeply felt, consistently held. That is the miracle. That is the turning point. You can decide right now to live as the man or woman you have always desired to be. And in doing so, everything begins to change, first within, then without. Others may not see it at first. They may still speak to the old you. That is of no consequence. You are not here to convince them. You are here to convince yourself. And the moment you do, the outer world will follow. People will forget your former self. Circumstances will rearrange. Events will align. And you will walk through a life that feels natural to you, but miraculous to everyone else. There is no struggle in correct thinking. Only persistence. Only return. If you slip, return. If you doubt, return. If you forget, return. There is no condemnation in the law. It waits patiently for your attention, for your faith. And the moment you give it, it moves swiftly. Not always visibly. Not always dramatically. But always faithfully. Always perfectly. Correct thinking requires no drama, no emotion, no outward show. It is quiet. It is still. It is the deep knowing that what you desire is already yours. It is the refusal to argue with appearances. It is the quiet insistence that what is unseen is more real than what is seen. It is the choice, moment by moment, to remain loyal to the end you have chosen. And oh, the joy of living this way. The peace, the power. You no longer chase. You no longer beg. You no longer shrink before circumstance. You create. You allow. You assume. And all the world bends to your assumption. Not because you forced it, but because you believed. And belief is the only force required. Belief, felt as real, is the engine of manifestation. It is the lever that moves the universe. There is nothing too big, too far, too delayed. There is only the question, can you think it? Can you feel it? Can you assume it long enough to become it? That is the only requirement. Not education, not money, not connections. Just belief, sustained and embodied. This is the gift we have all been given. This is the secret, hidden in plain sight. The secret the wise have always known, and the sleeping world has forgotten. Wake up now. Remember who you are. You are the operant power. You are the one who chooses what to think, what to feel, what to become. And with that choice comes all creation. There is no outer power, no fate, no luck, only consciousness, unfolding according to law. If your world displeases you, do not curse it. Change your mind. Choose again. Assume again. Think correctly. And watch the world transform before your eyes. This is not work. This is not effort. This is not toil. This is not toil. This is rest. This is Sabbath. This is creation through stillness, through faith, through inner alignment. And when you live this way, you will be astonished. You will laugh. You will wonder why you ever struggled, why you ever doubted. For the truth will become so clear, so obvious, so undeniable. You are the creator of your world. Always were, always will be. Do you desire love? Then think from love. Imagine what it feels like to be cherished, pursued, adored. Let that feeling become your atmosphere. Let it color your thoughts, and then do not seek it outside. Know that it is already yours, and let life catch up. Do you desire wealth? Then assume the mindset of wealth. Think from abundance. Feel the relief of security, the thrill of generosity. Think it, feel it, live it, and you will see the symbols of wealth appear, not as your goal, but as the natural result of your new state. The outer world is simply your mirror. It is always reflecting the image you hold within. Change the image, and the reflection must change. This is law. You need not fix the mirror. You only need to fix the image, and the mirror will do the rest. When you truly grasp this, you will fear nothing. You will no longer be at the mercy of events, people, conditions. You will walk in a world of your own making, and you will bless others, not because they have changed, but because you have. And in your changed perception, they must show up differently. For your world cannot exceed your own consciousness. It can only reflect it. So the question remains, not what do I want, but what am I willing to assume as already true. That is correct thinking. Not desire, but decision. Not wanting but being. Not reaching but receiving. It is the mind that says, I already am, and refuses to argue otherwise. That mind is the master. That mind is the creator. That mind is the doorway to all you desire. Would you like me to continue? And so I say to you now, think correctly, and the world will echo your thoughts in form. You do not need to beg life for scraps, when you have been given the power to imagine. You do not need to bow before circumstances, when you are their cause. Assume the noblest, the boldest, the most beautiful state you can conceive of, and live from it unwaveringly. Let the world do what it will. Let appearances shout their lies. You remain faithful to your inner knowing. You remain anchored in the unseen reality you have chosen, for that is the only reality that matters. This is your secret, your gift, your birthright. You become what you think from now, not someday, not eventually, but now. The moment you dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you create, you make real. And if you will persist in that assumption, no power in heaven or earth can stop its expression. So rise now. Leave behind the old thoughts. Cast off the heavy cloak of doubt. You have learned how to think correctly. Now live it. Trust it. Become it. For in correct thinking lies the key to all transformation, all abundance, all freedom. You are the operant power. There is no one to change but self.